There's been a big and at times complicated fight going on here at the state capitol in Sacramento, California, related to Governor Jerry Brown's proposal to eliminate redevelopment agencies, or RDAs. Part of that elimination process could lead to the drying up of a major source of funding for affordable housing throughout the state. Julie Snyder is the Policy Director for Housing California, one of the organizations that's been leading the battle to protect those affordable housing funds.
It's been hectic. I mean, when the governor's proposal came out in January, I think it was a shock. It was the first time we'd seen this sort of proposal as long as I've been working on housing issues, which has been about 15 years. And it really hasn't led up. We spent the early part of the year helping legislators understand how important that 20% of redevelopment funding that goes to build affordable places to live, how that's a linchpin. It's the local money that helps leverage state and federal dollars. And without it, nothing will get built, or fewer homes that are affordable will get built. And so we've spent all year educating legislators and like I said, the governor and the public about the impact of those cuts. So it's really been an unprecedented focus for the last 8 months on redevelopment agencies and what they do and what legislators would like to see change. Redevelopment agencies are local agencies formed by city councils or board of supervisors, and their goal is to eliminate blight in designated areas in a city or county. 20% of their funds are used to produce affordable places to live for a whole range of people in our community who live on modest budgets or fixed incomes. Back in June, the legislature passed 2 pieces of legislation that require redevelopment agencies to give some of their revenue to local schools and fire districts and other special districts. And in doing so, they allow the agencies to utilize some of those housing funds that I mentioned earlier. Our goal is to ask the legislature to pass cleanup legislation for those bills that would require redevelopment agencies to exhaust their non-housing funds before they tap into their housing funds. And any of the housing funds that they do tap to make the mandated payments to schools require the agencies to repay those over time when they have available funding. So that's what we're fighting for.
The governor, since he came into office, has really been pressing for the elimination of these redevelopment agencies, or perhaps maybe the restructuring might be more appropriate. I mean, this has been a big priority for him. It seems that he has not really gotten the possible effect that this could have on affordable housing.
You're right. The governor has fought. He had a proposal in January to actually eliminate the agencies altogether. The legislation that was passed by the legislature was more nuanced. It only eliminated the agencies if they refused to make payments to help fill this gap in the state's budget. By putting money towards schools, the state doesn't have to put as much money. So the governor did not get everything that he wanted, although he did get money to fill that state budget gap. And we are concerned that the impact on building affordable places to live in all of our communities wasn't a high enough priority on his list, and so we're doing everything we can to raise that on his priority list and explain how important these specific funds are to building affordable places to live. We all know that in this economy that Californians who are on either a fixed income, if they're a senior citizen, or a modest budget, they work in a low-wage industry, are struggling to keep roofs over their heads. And they've been really hard hit by other cuts in the state budget to programs like healthcare, education, and a whole range of social service programs. These are the folks who rely on the housing program to create more affordable places to live. So, for example, in the Nevada City and the Sacramento region, we're talking about preschool teachers, we're talking about bank tellers, we're talking about pharmacy technicians, we're talking about EMTs, a whole range of people in all communities that find it difficult to rent a place, let alone be able to buy. And for these folks, rents are actually going up. It's sort of a little-known side effect of the foreclosure crisis that as homes are foreclosed on and are left empty by the banks, those families are moving into the rental market. They have to find a place to live. So we're seeing in a number of communities rents actually go up at the same time that sale prices are dropping. And compounded on top of that, the largest state investment in affordable homes is through general obligation bonds. The last bond passed in 2006 is running out. So we're seeing a confluence of all of these events, and then on top of that, we have the potential loss of the housing funds through redevelopment. So it's a pretty dire time in the housing market for people who need to rent, which is roughly 42% of the California population. Housing California represents nonprofit developers and groups that provide services to people who are homeless. But as you said, we work with a very large coalition of groups groups that represent senior citizens, people who are homeless, veterans advocacy organizations, because ultimately all of them are the beneficiaries or the ones who are hurt when the marketplace doesn't produce affordable places that everyone can afford.
While there's no doubt that there has been problems with California's redevelopment agencies and the way they've been spending taxpayers' money over the years, it's also clear that California's working families and the poor were never the cause of those difficulties. It's also important to remember that even in the tightest of budgetary times, it's never right to balance the budget on the backs of California's hard-working families and the poor. Reporting for SES-TV and KVMR FM radio in Sacramento, California, I'm Mike Thornton.